Hi, I'm David Manti, and welcome to a new episode of the Today in Manufacturing podcast. With me this week are Jeff Ranke and Andy Zoll. We're the editors of Manufacturing.net, Industrial Equipment News, Food Manufacturing, Industrial Distribution, and a host of other publications in our portfolio, and we each have more than 20 years of experience covering the manufacturing industry. Each week, we take the 5 biggest stories on our websites and discuss the implications they have on the industry going forward. But before we get started, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You can also help us out a lot by giving the podcast a positive review on whatever platform you use. If you want to email the podcast, you can reach any of us at Jeff, David, or Andy at IEN.com with email the podcast in the subject line. We're also live every Thursday, so subscribe to us on YouTube at IEN Magazine to get a notification so you can join us in the live chat whenever we go live and mix it up. Jeff, how you doing this week?
Pretty good, man. You?
I'm doing great. Yeah, it was like, sometimes it takes producer Eric saying, like, we're going, like, right now to turn it on. But feeling good this week.
Good.
All right. Andy, how you doing?
Good. Busy but good.
Busy but good. It's like, it's good to see it. Like, I know that when you're here, it's because sometimes, you're filling in for Anna, which also means that you are also simultaneously, like, doing twice as much on a regular daily basis.
I don't know about twice as much, but like 10% more.
Oh, okay. I just know that you're, like, already more full than normal workload.
Yep. But that's okay,
So Anna is totally replaceable, is what you're saying.
I
think that's the takeaway.
That is not
food for thought.
What I would characterize
Andy
my
with
thoughts
a hot
as.
take, starting out hot.
This is how things start spreading on the internet, Jeff, because you just clip that part, and then all of a sudden, scandal at IEN. Andy Zoll calls for no. Well, that's not the case. Anna, hope you get some much-needed R&R, and we'll see you next week, I think, maybe. I don't know. We really don't coordinate schedules until, like, the day before. Maybe that's just me. But before we jump into our first story, we have a new word from our new sponsor, Blumira. This week's episode is brought to you by Blumira. The 2025 Data Breach Investigations report from Verizon revealed that manufacturers reported 1,607 data breaches in 2024, a substantial increase from 2023. A new video from Blumira shares real data from manufacturers to show you how to expand your awareness of the current cybersecurity landscape. It includes proactive strategies to minimize the risk of data exploitation and technologies that help monitor these threats in real time. Watch the video right now. There's a link to it in the live chat. There's a link to it in the body copy. Our first story this week. Layoffs are piling up, raising worker anxiety. Times are tough for the job market, and some analysts say businesses are at a, quote, no hire, no fire standstill. According to the AP, economic uncertainty has caused many to limit new work to only a few specific roles, if not pausing openings entirely. At the same time, layoffs have continued, and workers are worried. We're hearing a lot of old reasons, like rising operational costs and shifts in consumer spending. Others say it's part of a pivot towards artificial intelligence. Somehow, some way, we're not sure, but we have to do it and we need to have it. Oh, and federal employees are now going on their 5th week or in their 5th week due to the U.S. government shutdown. We've talked about many of these layoffs on the podcast, but GM, Amazon, UPS, Nestle, Lufthansa, Novo Nordisk, ConocoPhillips, Intel, Microsoft, and Procter & Gamble have collectively announced 182,300 layoffs. Jason Schletzer from Georgetown University told the AP, quote, I think there's a question mark around the long-term stability everywhere. Jeff, are you concerned with the dimming job market? Is this a blip or is it a trend?
Well, if you ask anybody who's in any of these situations, it surely doesn't feel like a blip. Okay, It's earth-shattering, so I don't think that's fair. However, I think it is part of the cycle, and one of the things that's at a problem with the cyclical nature of our economy right now is there's so much uncertainty that there's just paralysis. More than the layoffs, which are going to take place over a number of years, and as it relates to what we discuss on this podcast, Not all of them are in manufacturing. There's a lot of office jobs. There's a lot of redundancies in other areas that companies are looking to get rid of, which is understandable. And it's also, again, part of the natural cycle of a capitalist free market economy. So those things do happen. Again, what makes it more difficult to absorb and understand is how much uncertainty there is around things like tariffs, like the government shutdown. How is this going to impact pricing? We still have food prices that are through the roof. That affects everybody. We haven't gotten solid answers on inflation. The Federal Reserve doesn't know what it's going to do as far as interest rate cuts, even though it's been doing some different things now. But we could see a completely different board come in shortly.
Yeah.
There's so much stuff going on right now that it makes it so easy for companies to just say, you know what? I'm not doing anything. I am terrified as to what could happen tomorrow. So to help insulate my company and my employees, our best bet right now is to do nothing.
Yeah.
And that to me is what is scarier than any number of layoffs, because there's absolutely no way to grow in any way, shape, or form without investing in employees, investing in technology, investing in strategy, whatever the case may be. And that's what companies cannot do right now, because they don't know what's coming down the road.
Yeah.
There's so many things that they could count on before that they cannot right now. Supply chains, they were just starting to get sort of straightened out. They're completely different now. So when you put all of these things together, is this a blip or a trend? Man, I hope it's a blip.
Yeah.
Because if it's a trend, there's bigger issues to come. And sincerely, I do feel it is something that will be resolved over time. But right now, when you're in it, it's tough to look past it.
It's tough to look past it. It's really hard to live in. It's going to hurt for a little bit, especially when you're not sure when another one of the hurts is coming. And it does seem like we have a number of blips that are happening that cause further turmoil. And it's like, it's no longer paralysis by analysis. It's like paralysis out of just like general fatigue and exhaustion.
Self-preservation more than anything else. You just don't know what's coming, you know?
Well, and we always talk about how in times of economic downturn or not uncertainty necessarily, but that's when you innovate in order to surpass your competitors. But I think because there are so many unknowns, like a lot of people still don't know where we are right now. Like everyone kind of thinks we got a good idea as to where we're headed or where we maybe are. But like, so I think that's why no one's pulling a trigger on anything.
Well, and this story was more about layoffs in the job market, and I can appreciate that. But we've done a number of stories here. I know, like with toy companies and several other markets, they're not innovating. They're not coming out with new product lines right now because they don't know how to make the supply chain work for a lot of these new things that they want to develop.
Yeah.
Based on tariffs, based on just shifts in the market right now.
Yeah.
And that's what's hurting a lot of things too.
It, walking around on Halloween was a really good reminder of how every parent right now is feeling it at the grocery store in particular, because like the easy starting point was just like, oh, you know what? I filled the bowl once. I'm not filling it again. It led to a conversation with multiple parents about how prices are bad right now. Like it is a tough market. Andy, when we look at some of these numbers in the job market, and I only, this article covered a lot of different markets. I specified the ones that are touching industrial. But we're seeing this everywhere, and it is a troubling sight.
I was talking to someone recently for industrial distribution, but that obviously has impacts in the markets that we all deal with. And she was saying how, although tariffs are a factor, they're kind of a long-range factor more than anything. And each of these companies has specific reasons why they announced all these mass layoffs. But more than anything, it's just this uncertainty. Mm-hmm. And, it was very unpredictable at what level these tariffs would be at for a while. And that's kind of evened out. But now, just the Supreme Court might throw out tariffs. They just had oral arguments, and no one knows when that could be months before that decision is handed down. But a plurality, let's say, of the justices sounded pretty skeptical about it. So there's still this environment of unpredictability, because if there are tariffs, okay, there are tariffs, you can adjust for that, but we don't know if there's going to be tariffs. So companies are kind of stuck. As far as being a blip, this is not the Purchasing Managers Index, which is a manufacturing indicator that a lot of people use. It surveys basically supply executives across a range of industries. So they do the PMI index, and then within that, they do an employment index. And both of those have been in contraction since March. So, and they'll adjust up or down, but they've broadly been, we are not adding jobs in these industries for most of the year.
Yeah.
So
Pointing more at a trend.
These companies are making headlines, but this has been a long-term trend. I feel like it's safe to say now.
Well, and I started. We started having this conversation when we went to Automate in June, but that was when a lot of people, that's when people first started saying like, kind of wait and see with tariffs, right? And I mean, we're talking like a half a year is a really long time to wait and see. I mean, layoffs across the U.S. soared last month to more than 153,000, marking it the worst October for job reductions in 22 years. And that is according to Challenger Gray and Christmas. They're an outplacement firm. They also said that employers have announced nearly 1.1 million job cuts this year and more through October since 2020, when the pandemic shutdowns sent unemployment soaring. And it's just, I don't know. I'm glad that you brought up the PMI, also because some people don't know what PMI stands for. But
I have to look it up every month because I always forget anyway.
Well, no, but it's like that. This is something that has kind of shown contraction over time, and further instability has only made things worse. And it is going to be, it's going to be interesting to see what happens if the government comes back online and we start seeing these numbers reported. And I understand that it might take a minute to kind of get some of that information, but I don't know. Like I remain optimistic generally, but maybe not when it comes to that.
I think it's worth pointing out too that the PMI, I think it rose the first 2 months of this year, but before that it was something like 26 straight months of contraction too. So this is not like a tariffs hit and then things went immediately south thing. This is kind of a broader pattern that is now being affected by other things as well.
Yeah, meaning that it had 2 good months out of like 38. Mm-hmm. Okay. That's a trend.
It's been weird. It's been tough. The PMI has been tough to track since COVID. Yeah. Just because supply chains were so horked up, you really couldn't get a feel for where we were in terms of new orders, inventory, managing inventory, all of that stuff. And those are all factors that go into the PMI. So it's always been a good metric in terms of understanding where we are with manufacturing, but it's been tough for a while.
Well, and the saying horked up, visceral. Everyone went to the same place together when you said that one. Thanks for bringing that. I can't wait to use that later this evening. Just visceral.
Wow. I'm glad I didn't realize it carried such a response for you.
I mean, just sometimes, you don't use a saying every once in a while and then you're like, I miss it.
I'm adding that.
Yeah. I'm tossing it in just like, hey, guys.
You're welcome, everyone.
Yeah. It looks like the newsletter today got really horked up. And then everyone's like, oh, and they immediately start kind of clearing their throat. All right. Our next most popular story this week, how Hershey's chocolate survived an attack from Mars. Is it aliens? In the twilight of another successful, if not more expensive Halloween, consumers had 2 basic choices when it comes to chocolate: Mars or Hershey. A new article from John Haddad, a Penn State professor who just wrote a book about Hershey Park, says this relatively stable duopoly defines the U.S. chocolate candy market. But it wasn't always this way. Before the 1960s, Hershey kind of reigned supreme, but then Mars, quote, went for Hershey's jugular, speaking of horked up, and it changed the candy business forever. When Milton Hershey got into the industry in the 1880s, he imagined a new way of doing business: paternalistic capitalism. He turned the pastures of Pennsylvania into a chocolate factory and a planned community. Instead of wage-earning jobs and nothing else, he helped employees own homes. And then he offered them snow removal, garbage collection, trolley lines, good schools, a junior college, a zoo, a museum, a sports arena, a library, a community center, and a theater. They had a lot to do. Why leave other than to go to work?
Sounds like a control freak.
I mean, they even had their own amusement park. You can have fun as long as it's the fun I provide. In return, employees were expected to work hard, be loyal, practice clean living, and refrain from labor agitation. At the time, Hershey only made solid chocolate, and fellow confectioner Frank Mars made chocolate-covered snacks. Without competition, Hershey enjoyed a life of luxury, of not having to worry about market share. The company didn't even advertise. Well, then, in 1964, Forrest Mars, that's Frank's son, seized control of his father's company after his dad died and set his sights on dethroning Hershey. He cut ties with Hershey, which actually had been supplying the company's candy coatings, and told his engineers to learn how to make Hershey-like chocolate, and he gave him 6 months to do it. He also modernized the factory and ordered a surge in advertising. That strategy worked. By the decade's end, Mars had caught up with that sleeping Hershey giant and pushed the company into crisis. In response, Hershey opened a PR office, conducted market research, invested in new technology, retrained its sales force, and created a marketing department. The effort culminated with the company's first TV commercials that started airing in 1969. Then, in a cost-cutting move, Hershey terminated the free services for employees and other amenities. Paternalism was over. They almost closed Hershey Park too, but they converted it into a Disney-style theme park, paying for it with the money they saved by cutting those other fringe benefits. You can't have anything else, but you can have a theme park that you must pay to get into. But either way, it'll be nice. By giving Hershey the jolt it needed, Mars shook up the status quo and changed the chocolate company, the town, and that park forever. Jeff, a pretty clear example of competition breeding excellence.
100%. And by the way, I wasn't really calling Milton Hershey a control freak. I do appreciate the sentiment there. But I mean, it was interesting how...
It's not a reach.
Yeah, I feel like that's probably more likely than not.
Very interesting in looking at how all of this developed. And to your point, absolutely shows the benefits of competition and all the things that we aspire to within all of our markets. I mean, you see this in sports all the time, right? One company in your division goes out and spends money on a quarterback. Well, you either need to do that or get some defensive backs, whatever the case is. So it was a very interesting case study to see how all of this came together. You do wonder if there was some other factor that sort of prompted the kid from Mars to really go after Hershey so aggressively.
Yeah.
Seemed like they had a very solid symbiotic type of relationship. You know, everybody was happy. So when you do hear about those disruptors, you do wonder if there was some other element involved there that went beyond just growing.
Yeah.
You know, so interesting dynamic there. And I think one of the things that I thought about too, not to politicize what is kind of a story with a lot of good feels in it, but when you look at the core crux of what a lot of the things, whether it's Doge or tariffs or whatever, the competition element is sort of the underlying element of what hopefully you think the Trump administration is trying to do with a lot of the deregulation efforts, shifting things, making some of these government agencies smaller. You can definitely argue with the practice and the tactics that they've taken in trying to bring this about.
Yeah.
But that is sort of the underscoring theme. So there has to be a level, in my opinion, there is a level of appreciation for trying to increase the competitive elements of markets. But I think we can see that there's a better way to do it, maybe than just gouging agencies that are also there to support small businesses.
Yeah.
So
Except when they're also owning a piece of the business.
that's also an issue.
That's
an issue.
That's a other non-competitive part. That's a finger on the scale sort of thing. But no, the one thing I will say about this story is that there are books written about it, and I'm going to buy them because it a lot of this culminated right around the invention of the M&M. And because there was the chocolate and the candy coating. And yeah, it was a very symbiotic relationship. And the way, I mean, it sounded briefly, just in brief, what I looked at, that it was just greed. You know, like he's just like, yeah, we're playing nice, but I'm coming for your title and I'm going to take the entire industry. And I mean, hey, you know what? That's you hope your kids do better than you. And maybe they turn into like capitalistic men driven by your rival's demise. You know, Andy, what I saw this story as also just a really interesting historical look, but it's a reminder that like someone is always coming for your title.
Yeah, I mean, this is probably an oversimplification, like a lot of history. It's probably an oversimplification of how Forrest Mars decided to go after Hershey. But if it wasn't him in the 60s, I mean, it was a changing world. It was happening at some point. You couldn't have Milton Hershey's utopia forever. So it just shows among many reasons, shows the importance of, one, being able to anticipate disruptions that might happen in your industry, and two, being nimble enough to respond to them. So there's a lot of companies that, when faced with a challenge like that, wouldn't be up for it, and Hershey was, to their credit, to these two gentlemen in this article. And it's also, I mean, you went through the company town aspect of this, and it's maybe a reminder of why well-meaning, it's probably not the best way to go about establishing a society, because things already go bad when a major employer hits some rough waters in communities where they don't own everything, and when they do, it could be a lot worse.
Yeah, I do like the idea of this vision of the industrial utopia, and I do think that there are some people that have visions of setting that up on, let's say, a Martian landscape in our current economy. But it also is a reminder that you need to continue to innovate and fight against complacency, which is very hard. It is very hard because it is so easy to just, this is how we've always done things, and it's working. And so, and then you wind up with these times of mass disruption, and it can, all of a sudden you find yourself the sleeping giant. And it can be difficult and terrifying, but it
painfully
also
for your workers. Yeah.
Oh yeah, very disruptive, but very good for your business overall. I mean, I don't know if you guys saw this part, but like some of the employees at Hershey were so behind the times that when they said they had to start marketing, they actually thought that's what their wives did with a shopping cart. Like shopping at a market was marketing.
That was pretty good.
Whew. That's incredible. You got to bring that back in some sort of advertising. I mean, and I think you kind of alluded to it, Andy, but this was definitely like a rose-colored glasses look at the past, which happens, which is okay. It's from a guy that wrote about the park, and just a reminder, like how we kind of massage the narrative, because they said there was the line, with the exception of a strike during the Great Depression, the company in town lived in harmony. Well, that little incident, that little blip during the Depression, the Hershey company allegedly orchestrated a riot, brought in strikebreakers from Pennsylvania, and forced locals, including the dairy farmers who relied on their business with Hershey, to participate in this riot against people who were trying to unionize. Just a little massage.
Got ugly.
Yeah, just round in the corners. Just like, hey, I know you rely on our business, and they're trying to kill it, so go beat them up.
We built you an amusement park, but also you can't advocate for your own salary and benefits.
True.
It's a fun trade-off.
Why don't you go take a ride? Hey, maybe the harnesses aren't working. All right. Our next most popular story this week. Oh, man, just like a company outing. Hey, everyone go to the park. Hold on.
That got dark.
Much different story. Our next most popular story this week. Toyota debuts autonomous car concept to transport kids. At the Japan Mobility Show 2025, Toyota unveiled the Mobi, an electric bubble car concept for kids. Mobi looks more like an escape pod than a car. The novel concept, first reported by Design Boom, is autonomous and uses AI to control navigation, speed, and even maneuver through traffic. The child, depending on his or her age, can even communicate with UX Friend. That's Mobi's AI assistant that talks to your baby inside. Toyota hasn't given any indication that the concept car will actually advance with further development or testing, and it's a petite design, so maybe not likely to survive an accident. But still, it does shed a light on an ongoing problem for parents. Child transportation, just time in general. Jeff, I know how hard it is, like the first time you put your kids on a bus or let another parent drive them. So for me and for many, it's like a hard sell to send them to a destination autonomously without an adult on board.
Yeah, I'm not gonna be super critical of this particular concept because it's a concept.
Yeah, it's a futurism show.
Yeah. So this was just them basically showing, hey, what if, or maybe down the road, or whatever. And there's no way. I mean, they already talked about it not really being safe if it was, heaven forbid, an accident or something like that. They haven't made any provisions there materialize. So I'll put this off to the side. The one thing that I think automakers need to be careful about is the level of investment they're putting in autonomous technology right now.
Yeah.
Okay. So just looking at a bunch of different surveys here, whether it's Deloitte, AAA, Pew's Research, all that, it kind of comes out to says the same thing. About half of all consumers right now have no interest in an autonomous vehicle, have no interest in autonomous technology. Now that shifts when you go to age groups.
Yeah.
Okay. If you start going into a younger age group, they start to feel a little more comfortable with it. It's not overwhelming.
Yeah.
It's not like there is this huge outpouring of demand for autonomous tech. Now, on the other side of that, you see about 70% of these folks saying, we do acknowledge that it could be safer, it could be helpful.
Yeah.
From my own personal perspective, I like to drive. If I had a vehicle with autonomous capabilities, I'm not sure I'd really ever use it.
Yeah.
That's just me. But we also saw this level of investment and anticipation and forecasting that turned out to not be so accurate, even though they spent a lot of money on it when it came to electric vehicles.
Yeah.
So I think hopefully what automakers have learned is we can't just shove this technology down the consumer's throat. There needs to be a demand for it. They need to want this stuff.
Yeah.
Not everybody's Elon Musk, okay, who just insists on developing this and putting it into every single vehicle and telling everybody it's 100% autonomous. That's not what everybody's looking for. So pumping the brakes a little bit there in terms of how much resource we put into this, I think is worth mentioning. Toyota's already spent over the last 2 years like $5 billion in different investments and technology, acquisitions, and everything else for autonomous vehicles. You know, let's maybe get some other stuff worked out first.
Yeah.
So that would be the one point of caution there, just from a market perspective. More personally, is somebody who now, I ran into a friend after church actually the other day, and he was in a situation like, yeah, I dropped one kid off here. I've got to come back in like 2 hours to get another one. We're still running. My wife and I are obviously away from all that. We don't have to do any of that. We're not taking kids to school, to practice, to kids' house, anything, haven't for a while. You miss it.
Yeah.
So if this is meant to address that issue of, man, the kids are taking us everywhere, and I can appreciate the stress in that moment, you're going to miss it.
Yeah.
This isn't stuff and I've said this before, it's not something you have to do, it's something you get to do. So looking to technology to solve the scheduling and logistics issue of hauling your kids around, again, sorry for the cliche, but let's pump the brakes there a little bit too and understand, while there is some hardships, and I can appreciate folks who maybe have one vehicle and 5 kids and all the other dynamics there is a level of things that we need to embrace.
Yeah.
Embrace some of this struggle because you're going to miss it. I mean, some of the best conversations I've had with my kids growing up, whether they remember it or not, was taking them to and from stuff.
Yeah.
So again, just a couple of different factors to maybe damper or lessen the enthusiasm for the autonomous developments, in my opinion.
Well, you don't need to pump the brakes because the UX friend will do that for you.
Well, it sure will.
But I mean, I was going to ask you because, there was a time you didn't have the numbers, it was 2 to 3. Like there had to be times where like you need to be 3 places with 2 people. But then how do you decide which one goes in the pod? Just like, I know that you and Dad had that argument last night.
You're not there yet, but once they hit a certain age, they'd probably be like fighting over who would go in the pod and not have to ride with
I don't want to go with Dad. I'm taking the pod.
Yeah.
But it was just like, you know what you did or didn't do. Get in the pod. Go to soccer.
Wow.
No,
David, you're going dark with these stories here. You're going to the negative thing here.
I didn't think about it, so you were talking about it. Just like how, there would be a moment where it's just like, I would love to take you to practice. Your sister's going in the pod. But I mean, also like, I would just say, Andy, I'm not an early adopter on this one, but I don't hate the idea because there have been several times in my life where there's just like, if there needed to be another transportation option. And I'll kind of get into some of those stats also, but like transportation for parents is like a major issue
for sure.
Like people, the article kind of goes into, 11% of people have lost a job because of an issue transporting their kids. And I mean, so if anything, it shines a light on there are problems in society with the demands on parents, both professionally and personally.
For sure. We could just have public transportation, and yet we do not.
Think of how crazy that is. Just like we could easily solve this with greater mass transit, but instead, how about tiny pods?
Yeah. What stage of capitalism is this where you can't leave your job, so you send a robot to go pick up your kid. Like, where are we at with that one?
I think that's the dystopian one.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, just like, oh, they should get here soon. I got an app to track their pod.
Yeah, I kind of took the same track as Jeff on this. It's easy to focus on how bleak this is, but in my head there might be maybe a better application for this kind of technology. So like a larger little pod that people
takes the whole family.
People who don't have their own vehicle or can't drive, teens or people with disabilities, whatever, they could take it to whatever and they can take care of themselves. Wouldn't need to have like a fuzzy interior to prevent nightmares, There's a spot, and I think to Jeff's point as well, I think there's a market opportunity for this kind of, because that's what all these car companies are chasing, is the future market opportunity. If they solve autonomy and they can have fleets of robo-taxis out here that's an entire new mobility ecosystem is what they're all talking about. So that's really what they're chasing, I think, more than insisting that people want this, like some car companies. But yeah, it's maybe tough to see past that on this story a little bit.
Well, and I believe it was Canoe that had basically this idea that was a van, right? And it's just a little too early. And then, you could look at this thing and be like, well, this is essentially that robot that's delivering pizzas and other foods on sidewalks, right?
Yeah.
They just basically put eyes on it. And they're like, no, it's for kids. It's like, I think I'm putting my kid in the same cooler the pizza's in.
Yeah.
They're going in the same way, the same place. But yeah, I think that when we look at stories like this, I rarely want to be the person, well, not rarely, but like how there could be more of an emphasis on family values and just how we are pulling so many people in different directions and not really providing them time to be a family because they're too busy trying to keep the family afloat.
You should not be stretched so thin that you can't take your kid to whatever.
Exactly.
Doesn't matter what it is.
No,
anything.
And so in the article, I referenced this 2025 State of School Transportation that the AP Nork Center of Public Affairs research team put together. And it was specific to the challenges schools and parents face with transportation. Just a couple of the numbers from that. 56% of parents report feeling stressed about their children's transportation at least a few times each year. I feel like that is so low because I feel like that's almost a daily thing. 25% have stressed at least monthly. Some 35% have 35% or more have missed work. And as I said, 11% of people have lost a job because they needed to take their kid to and from school and other activities. And that's unacceptable. There has to be a middle ground there where, parents can survive, have a family, and still get their kids to and from places without losing their job. I don't know. What do you think, Jeff? No?
I don't know. It just feels like these are... Oh, boy. I'll just they're being a little dramatic here at times. It's frustrating in that moment, but then there's also the reality of the situation where you can figure it out. I understand people get stressed about all sorts of different things, and there were definitely times I was like, man, how are we going to do this? At the end of the day, you figure it out. It's more... Some of those numbers just, I don't know. As opposed to... I would go the other way.
Yeah.
I think if you want to be stressed about something, you can, and stress is defined differently. Not that I'm trying to go down that rabbit hole, but again, this is time with your kids, okay? And getting them from point A to point B. I understand in the daily grind of things, yes, that can become a chore. But you take a step back, and there's a different perspective.
Yeah.
So...
Well, I guess what I'm thinking about is more in terms of there are employers where you cannot leave and take your kid to an appointment without getting a point. And if you have X number of points, you're fired. That's just a reality of some jobs. And so I think that there could be a little bit more wiggle room and companies that have a bit more of a restrictive HR policy without getting taken advantage of, where an employee can take care of their family like that and not worry about losing their job.
And so I'm extremely fortunate. I've never been exposed to situations where the school or another parent or there wasn't some other support system in place.
Yeah.
Usually even there was a super late bus that was running for those types of things. So again, maybe I'm just extremely fortunate there. I know I'm fortunate with our employer and how flexible everything is here. That aside, it just feels like there's other resources available the vast majority of the time. So for those 11%, yeah, that's horrible. Okay, and I don't know their stories. I'm not going to try to predict it, but also I think we talk about stress level about transporting kids to extracurricular stuff. If this is really having this much of a negative impact on your life,
oh yeah, you got to make hard
take
choices.
a step back here a little bit and let's recalculate.
Yeah, I think anecdotally there's all different types of situations, but I think it's, there are times where you're doing too much, and then there are times where you're trapped, and you have to do it. But I mean, either way, what a wonderful conversation about our cultural limitations based on a tiny little. I mean, it kind of looks like the novelty alarm clock that my son has on his nightstand. It's a cute little thing.
Went a little far beyond this thing that is probably maybe not going to get another dime from Toyota.
Oh yeah, Toyota's like, I mean, it was like the 12th thing they decided to bring to the show. They're like, I don't know, put a clear cover on it, slap a few displays on it, and we'll call it the
give it googly eyes.
Yeah, it's the mobility show. It's the Moby. There we go. We're fine. Yeah. I mean, yeah, we are talking about a show that also had the the Skywalker?
Star.
The Star Walker, which is essentially like a little jump seat from like a theme park in like a X8 quadcopter. And, it looked really cool, but it also looked like maybe don't move inside of it.
Yeah, it could fall apart at any moment.
Yeah. And if it doesn't, like if you point too far, it's going to chop your hand off. All right. Our next most popular story this week. Anduril opens Ghost Shark Factory as first autonomous underwater vehicle rolls off the line. Last week, Anduril officially opened a state-of-the-art Ghost Shark manufacturing facility in Sydney, Australia. The California-based defense technology company turned the lights on just 7 weeks after receiving a significant $1.1 billion investment from the Royal Australian Navy. Anduril will deliver a fleet of these large autonomous underwater vehicles over the next 5 years. The same day that this opened, the first Ghost Shark extra-large autonomous underwater vehicle, or XLAUV for short, it rolled off the line ahead of schedule. The new 7,400 square meter facility can make the Ghost Shark, as well as its commercial baseline, the Dive XL, all at scale. And the Ghost Shark's development was kind of unique. Rather than relying on traditional defense acquisition, the Navy actually co-developed and co-funded the Ghost Shark with Anduril. The Navy embedded personnel into Anduril's operations and returned the favor as part of this massive co-development deal. Anduril says Australia has actually faced persistent and threatening presence of Chinese naval assets in its home waters for years. I had no idea that was happening. AUVs can directly address this challenge through coastal defense patrols and area-wide domain awareness, all powered by AI. If the Australian government approves, the vessels could soon be available for export to allies and global partners. Andy, that's pretty remarkable considering that this went from prototype to fleet in less than 3 years.
Yeah, this is a remarkable product development success story. And it obviously has implications far beyond Australia and what they're dealing with potentially hostile operations in their waters. Over the past months, years, Europe is already dealing with the prospect of sabotage of cables and undersea infrastructure in that part of the world that have let's say, highly suspected links to Russia. So there was the Politico report earlier this year about basically how easy and cheap it is to carry those types of things out. One analyst said it's as simple as possibly just bribing a ship captain to drop their anchor and just snaps it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, these technologies and other things like them are ways to kind of combat those sorts of bad actors in these areas and, keep the lights on and communications channels open, because that's what these things are relying on, these undersea cables that really aren't very big and are very vulnerable.
Well, and I'm really glad that you bring that up, because that was a point I didn't think about at all. Just, we always hear about after these lines break, and then there's the investigation afterwards. But we've seen the cost of drone and autonomous technologies come down, and you could essentially have, and it doesn't have to be the XL AUV Ghost Shark. Right. It could be the small AUV Ghost Shark. Just patrolling these lines.
We did a story not too long ago about much smaller vessels, autonomous, that are basically working like drones in the air, just a network of them, basically patrolling, being able to patrol a wide swath of the ocean. So swath of the ocean. So this is one of a number of projects trying to combat those threats as well.
Yeah, and it's or the drone swarms or whatever that are all working together. Jeff, when you look at the story, you got to look at kind of the speed, how they work together. Normally, and it kind of mentions it a little bit. I kind of mentioned it a little bit, but how it's kind of just like, here's money, create it, we're gonna buy it. Instead, it's just like, here's money and resources. Who everyone knows what we need. Work on it together. And I mean, they were able to achieve some pretty incredible development. I mean, granted with an acquisition, but still bring it online. And, Anduril's very blunt about it. They're just like, hey, first of all, as long as the government says it's okay, we can sell these to anybody. And kind of look what we did here. Maybe we could do that in other, nations that we partner with.
Well, I mean, first of all, it was a good choice by Australia to partner with Anduril because they have a background. Even before the acquisition, they had a lot of this technology in-house when it comes to autonomous underwater navigational vehicles. Okay, they were much smaller, nothing this size, and not with this type of capabilities or range. But they had the initial foundation, the structure, if you will, the technological expertise to build upon. Mm-hmm. So it made a ton of sense right there, just in terms of picking the right person. Also, what you saw is how heavily embedded both of these organizations were within the internal operations of each other, which you don't see. I think it still takes place. It's just not this transparent. They were very open about how much they were working together, which I'm sure if you went to Lockheed or Boeing or any place else, there's a ton of government employees and government officials, embedded within their organizations as well. But here it just seemed much more collaborative. It wasn't just about accountability. It was also about, like you mentioned, sharing these resources to get things done more quickly. So I think there's just a bunch of things that was done really, really well. Yeah. Hopefully our Department of, I can't call them defense anymore, our Department of War is paying attention to this, is sort of establishing a template potentially for developing some of these new technologies. We've seen so many projects, just look at the things that have been going on with NASA and trying to go back to the moon or to Mars. Timelines are just blown out of the water, hundreds of millions of dollars in overrun costs. Here you go. This one worked, and maybe this, again, establishes a better template to work from in developing a lot more of these new technologies. The other thing that's interesting is China, I think, has infused so much investment in military technology right now. It's crazy. Whenever you hear about some of these new developments, it's always in response to something with China. When you look at everything that we're doing, not just with unmanned submarines, but with new naval vessels and planes, it's about having capacity and range to get larger distances. Well, they're talking about crossing the Pacific Ocean. Okay, They're talking about getting to China and Russia. So it's interesting to see how that continues to be a driver in a lot of these new military developments.
Well, and Anduril took a big risk in kind of developing the Ghost Shark. In February 22, months before securing any formal engagement with the government, they acquired Boston-based AUV startup Dive Technologies. The program started with low-rate initial production and does plan to move to full-scale production next year. I also like to always look at, it's all about the domestic supply chain, right? So parts and materials for the Ghost Shark are going to be sourced from more than 40 small and mid-sized local suppliers, and more than 150 high-skilled jobs were created to make it happen. So Anduril obviously took a bit of a risk, but, maybe had some things in the works, knowing that if they could make this happen, they could work together. But I don't know. I thought it was an incredible story. And I don't know, we continue to see Anduril kind of at the bleeding edge of a lot of this new military technology. And sometimes you're just like, is that real though? But I mean, these, this came off the line. They have a real partner with the Royal Navy, the Royal Australian Navy. And I mean, this is as real as it gets.
They are the perfect personification of the thing that leads to the thing. The stuff that they develop is about this core technology that can be implemented and embedded and built upon for bigger and better things.
Also, I mean, you got to say it, like they just get naming conventions, Andy. They're just like, They're like, yeah, sure. It's known as the XL AUV, but I mean, it's the Ghost Shark. It's the Ghost Shark.
This is why you pay editors.
Well done.
That's right. That's right. You gotta have comms in house as well.
Yep.
All right. And Jeff, you're talking about like how, the answer to the problems with NASA was just privatize, commercialize, right? Like where maybe we're seeing that if it was a little bit more of a hybrid, where essentially it was like, okay, all the good people from NASA just get hired on by SpaceX. There could have been a hybrid there that maybe we would be a little bit further along than if we just went the other way. All right. Our most popular story this week. UPS plane crashes and explodes at Kentucky airport. On Tuesday, a UPS cargo plane crashed in Louisville, Kentucky. Investigators are piecing together the mystery, specifically why the aircraft caught fire and lost an engine on takeoff. According to the AP, the inferno consumed the enormous plane and spread to nearby businesses, killing at least 12 people in and around UPS Worldport. That's the company's global aviation hub. The NTSB is working on the investigation, but said that it could take more than a year before we get any real answers. The plane was able to gain enough altitude to clear the fence, and at the end of the runway, just before crashing outside of the airport. The cockpit voice recorder and data recorder have been recovered. The engine was found on the airfield. The crash and subsequent explosion caused explosions at Kentucky Petroleum Recycling and even hit an auto salvage yard. The Louisville Packing Handling Facility is the company's largest. The hub has 20,000 employees, handles 300 flights daily, and sorts more than 400,000 packages an hour. Jeff Guzzetti is a former federal crash investigator. He said a number of things could have caused the fire at the UPS as the UPS plane was rolling down the runway. The engine could have partially come off and ripped out the fuel lines, he says, or it could have also been a fuel leak igniting and burning the engine off. The crash is actually similar to a one in 1979 when an engine fell off an American Airlines jet just as it was leaving O'Hare and 273 people died. Guzzetti said that jet and the UPS plane had the same General Electric engines, and both planes underwent heavy maintenance in the month prior to the crash. The NTSB blamed the Chicago crash on improper maintenance. The UPS plane was on the ground in San Antonio from September 3rd to October 18, but it's unclear what maintenance was performed. Jeff, I found it shocking that a similar incident happened before. I found it even more shocking that incident happened 46 years ago.
Yeah, I understand where you're going. I need more information here before we can start pointing too many similarities. I understand there's definitely maybe something beyond coincidence there.
Yeah.
I'll give you that. I think I need to know a little bit more in terms of what happened here, because when you look at the level of explosion and when we get these stories, sometimes we almost become not desensitized, but that happened and we move on to the next thing. Again, with respect to the fact that we lost 12 lives, and it's probably going to end up being higher than that.
Yeah.
When you see these images, I've never seen a wall of fire be created so quickly and then persist for so long. Mm-hmm. That's exactly what it is. It was unreal looking at some of that footage. And when you look at that, it has to be more than just that engine falling. There had to be something involved with fuel lines, heat, improper, speed. There's a number of different variables that you feel had to have been involved with that, other than just some bad engine maintenance.
Yeah.
So to speculate further on that, the coincidences are frightening, okay? And it is surprising that something like this would persist if it is a similar situation. When you look at this within the context of everything else that UPS is dealing with right now, man alive. I mean, not only are they coming off of, they've got a lot of financial issues. We're one of the companies that we were talking about there has had huge layoffs because they've got a lot of market issues. They've got a lot of problems. They're not being able to compete with the fact that Walmart and Amazon and some of these other larger retailers are doing their own shipping.
Yeah.
So they've lost a ton of market share there. They've also got a lot of competition within these marketplaces. So UPS was dealing with those normal sort of business growth, business development problems, throwing a tragedy like this. And they're also being hugely impacted by the fact that this is Worldport. There's no clear indication of how much business or percentage of their business runs through Louisville. But it's a lot. I mean, they're basically, this is their U.S. hub. They can get to any U.S. airport within 4 hours from Louisville. You can go on and on, 90 football fields large. I mean, just a huge structure and a huge part of their infrastructure. Well, now a lot of those deliveries, a lot of those cargo planes are being sent to other hubs. So their supply chain has been disrupted, which means it's disrupting that of thousands of other companies as well, which I'm sure doesn't make people real enthusiastic about continuing to work with UPS. And then you throw in everything with the government shutdown and the air controllers and that whole situation. So they're also seeing delays there. So when you're talking about a company that's dealing with, on-time delivery and providing safe, reliable distribution of your cargo, your products, the convergence of issues and challenges for them right now is enormous. There's nothing that would lead me to believe that this is going to be put on the back burner or anything. I'm not suggesting that in any way, shape, or form. But what about some of those other issues that they are dealing with? They will have to go to the back burner, and they're not back burner issues. So for UPS to be absorbing all of these challenges at once, boy, to see how they come out of this one will be very interesting.
Well, I think the wall of fire was pretty easily explained for me because this plane was headed to Honolulu. They said it had an incredible amount of fuel on board. And so that's why once the fire started, it just continued. And that was one thing that stood out to me was, that debris path was a half-mile long. And when you look at the satellite photos, it is an incredible path of destruction. I do think that part of it is, at this point right now, you hand over the investigation to the NTSB. The NTSB has 24 officials on site, more than 24 officials on site right now. And so for that, UPS can kind of be in a support role and make sure that they have everything they need from an information perspective. But they also, UPS, I think, came out and said that they were almost back to completely online today. I mean, I get it. That's what they're saying. But I don't know. When you're looking at the industry, Andy, and you see something like this, how do you think it impacts UPS? Do you believe it when they say they're almost fully back online? And, I guess part of the reason I was saying that I was shocked that the similar thing happened 46 years ago, I mean, that means to me that that sort of plane was in service that long ago.
Well, so the plane that crashed was an MD-11, and the Chicago
that was a DC-10.
79. That was a DC-10, but they're both made by McDonnell Douglas. They're both the same basic structure, from what I understand.
Yeah, the MD-11 is the one that came after the DC-10.
The next generation, if that's the right word. I don't know. Yeah. So the Louisville Courier Journal kind of did a look at that plane in particular, which I was curious about. They don't serve passenger carriers anymore. They haven't carried a passenger flight since 2014, but it's still active as a cargo plane, obviously, for both UPS and FedEx. The UPS said in an SEC filing that it owned and or operated 27 MD-11 planes, but it's also been working to phase them out and replace them with newer Boeing planes. So details on that are a little difficult to find. It reportedly planned to retire 9 of them in 2023, and it hasn't announced when it plans to retire all of them. So, again, still early. This is just, a quote from a former flight investigator about just noting the similarities between these two crashes. Right. So we don't want to read too much into it, but I do also wonder if that shuffles their timetable at all for overhauling their fleet.
Yeah, and I guess that's part of the issue with any of these stories is also that, we'll receive a preliminary report in the first 30 days, but it's going to be 18 to 24 months before we have that, complete report after the investigation is over. And it's also with these stories, it's always wild to me with how the NTSB comes out and says, hey, this investigation is going to be intensive. We found the engine, but we're going to need the engine mounts. We're going to need the bolts. We're going to need every piece and to look through them all. And so they basically ask anyone in the surrounding area, hey, if you find something, please let us know. And that is, the videos of the wall of fire really were visceral in terms of showing you like how devastating it was. But yeah, seeing that debris path, that half-mile debris path that kind of starts cutting into the warehouse and then goes throughout the community is incredibly tragic. So hopefully there will be more information coming out about this over the next month and then over the next 2 years, and we can update accordingly. Hopefully there will be something to learn and improve going forward. All right. Before we get into, in case you missed it, the story is maybe not as popular on our sites, but still stand to make a big impact on the industry going forward. We have another word from our sponsor. This week's episode is brought to you by Blumira. Blumira? Right. Blumira. This week's episode is brought to you by Blumira. The 2025 Data Breach Investigations Report from Verizon revealed that manufacturers reported 1,607 data breaches in 2024, a substantial increase from 2023. A new video from Blumira shares real data from manufacturers to show you how to expand your awareness of the current cybersecurity landscape. It includes proactive strategies to minimize the risk of data exploitation and technologies that help monitor threats in real time. So watch that video right now.
I just want to add one thing onto that, Reed. Those were the number of reported incidents that Verizon can track.
Yeah.
There are so many more than that.
Yeah.
So just keep that in mind, too. People might be thinking, see that number and be like, well, out of all the manufacturers out there, for there to be like 1,600, I don't know. Trust me. There were a lot more.
Really?
So much more prominent, even than those numbers would indicate. The percentage increase, again, you're looking at potentially like one or two different mechanisms used to track those threats. So much more happening out there that we are not talking about, and where videos and resources like the stuff from Blumira, hugely important.
Well, I thought that was a big enough number. I was just like, oh my God, that is.
It's way bigger than that.
Man. Yeah. Well, I'll add that to the read. They found this.
This is what they know about.
Yeah.
It's more than that.
It's real bad.
Yeah.
Check out the video. There's a link in the live chat and in the body copy. All right. In case you missed it, stories that weren't as popular on the websites, maybe despite how popular the first version of it was, and still stand to make a big impact on the industry going forward. So in case you missed it this week, we actually have an update on the ATS Andersen story that we discussed on the podcast last week. This article, ATS Countersues Andersen after accusations of poor management for a project that ran 860 days late. So, as I said, last week, we talked about how Andersen Corporation, a manufacturer of windows and doors, sued automation company ATS Corporation. They said ATS failed to deliver equipment for a factory project at an Iowa subsidiary, Eagle Window and Door Manufacturing. They said poor management caused the project to wrap up 860 days late. Well, that was one side of the story. Late last week, ATS filed an answer and counterclaim as well as a motion to dismiss against Andersen Corporation and Eagle. Matt Robinson, Director of Corporate Affairs and Communication at ATS, actually reached out to IEN to shed a little more light on the situation. He couldn't share a lot, but he gave us a few details. ATS not only seeks to dismiss Andersen's case, but claims damages ATS Ohio, its division in the area, suffered as a result of Andersen and Eagle's breach of project agreement. ATS Ohio began and completed 5 projects for Andersen-owned facilities between 2020 and the day that they sued ATS over the E-Series project. During the E-Series window automated assembly project, it also became evident to ATS Ohio that Eagle did not intend to pay ATS for the cost borne by ATS to follow Eagle's instructions to deviate from ATS Ohio's standard practices and project specifications. So basically, there was scope, then there was scope creep, and they're like, we got to pay for it. And they're like, no. Robinson said it has provided multiple proposals to Andersen and Eagle, all in an effort to align Eagle's instructions with the contract requirements. Now, I chose this story because so many times we cover these stories and we have a little bit about what's going on from the other point of view. We have nothing. We have the statement that says, we can't say anything. It's in the court, so we can't comment on it. And this was one of those stories where they reached out to us directly and they were like, hey, that's what their side of the story is. This is what ours is. Here are the documents. You can look at them. And this is what happened to us. I thought one thing that was kind of interesting about this story was that while this one project went bad, they completed 5 other projects for them in the same time. So it was like they had an existing relationship and many plates spinning, right? So I mean, it either talks to the level of how bad things were that Andersen wanted to litigate this, even though they were clearly like a well-established partner. But I don't know. So that's why I wanted to grab this one, not only as an update as to a story we talked about last week, but also just how, there are always 2 sides to the story. And Andy, I don't know if you had a chance to check this one out because it was an update on the initial reporting that you did on the story. And I mean, the one quote that Robinson said was that, while we intend to overcome this matter in the courts and not through the media, I did want to make sure that you were provided additional perspective and context on this matter, he said to the media.
So in fairness to me, basically.
Yeah.
They commented on the original story in the Minnesota Star Tribune, and they basically said what we get a lot of times in these cases, which is that it's in the courts, and we can't really comment further. So they said they would defend itself through appropriate channels. So it's good that they reached out, and now that there's a filing, I guess, with the court, they can disclose a little bit more, and that's important. But it's not like we just put Andersen's out there and said, check this out.
Well, no, I mean, with any story, we do that, right? We always reach out to every party and we're like, would you care to comment?
Right. The other side of this is, I mean, as I'm understanding this, it underscores the importance of making sure your contract language is pretty tight, because what it sounds like is ATS thinks it had to go above and beyond and should have been compensated accordingly. And Andersen and its subsidiary thought that they did not have to do that and they should do the work. So,
part of the deal.
It'll get hashed out one way or another, settled or in a verdict. But you hope to avoid messes like this with lawyers and stuff. So that's why they're out there.
And man, just how if you're in a similar situation that people can get fired up. Like both sides can get angry, but I feel like once it gets to this point, like nobody wins because it's like there are 2 sides. Well, I mean, maybe there's a side that wins, but there's going to be legal fees. And I don't know. It's just, especially Jeff, when you have an established partner like this, that you've worked on multiple projects successfully, you would assume that maybe when you come to some sort of hiccup like this, I don't know, maybe it's just, if it's millions of dollars and there's no middle ground, but there's got to be a better path forward other than trying to settle it in the courts.
Well, yeah, this sounds like a messy divorce.
Yeah.
And to Andy's defense too, or not that we really needed to defend ourselves, but one of the things that we did mention in covering this story was there was a similar situation with another vendor where ATS took them to court because they weren't getting paid, and ATS did win that suit. So there is somewhat of a, like I said, different facets, different sides to all of this in terms of we don't know exactly what's going on between these two, but I think this story, you mentioned 2 sides of a coin. I think this is more of a cube. Like there are multiple sides to this.
Yeah.
That is one of the benefits, even though it's expensive and you hate to see resources drained from 2 companies like this. One of the benefits of getting into court is everybody gets to tell their side, and we can come to, hopefully, a resolution.
Yeah. So if this is a cube, we have 4 more sides of this that we will report on for at least 4 more weeks of the podcast.
And then you got the inside of those sides, so it's even more.
Yeah, that'll be the verdict.
You're the math guy. I don't want to overstep.
No, the inside of the cube is often known as the 7th side in math circles.
There we go.
Andy.
7th side.
The 7th side.
David 7 Sides Manti.
Yeah, no, that's, I mean, I'm going to write that sci-fi script immediately for the Sci-Fi and Thriller channel. The 7th side. Andy, what's here in case you missed it this week?
We ran a story this week about the Tallgrass Trailblazer pipeline, which recently, in September, began routing the emissions from nearly a dozen Midwestern ethanol plants to a hub in Wyoming, where those emissions are then pumped thousands of feet underground, basically to summarize, be a viable method of carbon capture. So the article focused on a couple of things. First, there's a number of these proposals out there, but the developers here, one, they used an old, I believe, decommissioned natural gas line, so they didn't have to reroute a whole new pipeline that would disrupt things and need environmental studies and all that stuff. And two, they went to great lengths to get support from nearby communities, which a lot of companies either in this industry or others could stand to learn from. And I thought two of the important takeaways here are, one, which I already mentioned, is that carbon capture can work in these select cases, which is huge on a global scale. And two, that investing in these types of technology, there are huge tax incentives in play for these developers. That can create a pathway for an entirely new industry, because if you decrease the emissions involved in producing ethanol, that can then be turned into what's in effect a more environmentally friendly, sustainable aviation fuel, which is, I mean, there's billions and billions of dollars potentially in play there. So another good product development story, and a positive one, which is nice.
Well, it is nice. And it definitely was a reminder that, there's still a fair number of skeptics of this technology out in the industry. But I think that it's important that when you have these projects and you do them right, that you definitely put them under a spotlight. So that way, I think sometimes people see other attempts at doing something like this that didn't go well, and they make an assumption, they form an opinion, and and they don't waver from it. So I think it's important to share stories like this for these particularly unique applications. Jeff, did you have a chance to check out the article? What did you think about the carbon capture pipeline?
So I missed this one, so I'm glad you brought it up. It is very interesting. I mean, the whole concept of engineering taking these emissions 9,000 feet underground is kind of crazy, and I think it also reinforces that you need to do your homework, not just to communicate with the surrounding communities, but to make sure you have the right infrastructure in place, or the right natural resources in place, if you will. There's not everywhere you can go 9,000 feet underground. So developing and understanding where this makes sense and then duplicating it that way or replicating it in a similar way is how these things can gain more ground, because then it becomes less painful. I mean, more people can get on board, and we're offering a real viable solution, as opposed to sometimes I think these green initiatives are just seen as, well, here's the hippies, they're at it again trying to do all this crazy environmental stuff.
Yeah.
Instead, you can say, no, like, this is viable, we've done it, here's the template for it, basically. I think that helps broaden acceptance of these types of initiatives.
Tell you what, you put those hippies in that pipeline and we'll start getting somewhere.
Easy.
Jeff, what's your in case you missed it this week?
So this one, I just couldn't get past this story. This one just really caught me. Lockheed Martin is investing $50 million. This is not a made-up statement. To weaponize autonomous sailboats.
Yep. Definitely had to read this one twice.
Lockheed Martin is announcing a $50 million investment in Saildrone. Great name.
Yeah.
Saildrone. They are a company that builds maritime autonomous systems that run on renewable energy. I mean, how many boxes do you need to check here?
Yeah.
This strategic collaboration will deliver commercially available unmanned surface vehicles equipped with lethal defense technology. The companies will collaborate with a goal of delivering integrations, including on-water, live-fire demonstrations by next year. So first of all, if you haven't seen the Saildrone, I hadn't.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool, actually.
Yeah.
It is very cool. It looks exactly what you would think it looks like. It's an unmanned sailboat, and basically it's been going around the world. They have tested this in all sorts of harsh oceanic conditions.
Yeah.
It's mapping ocean floors. It is collecting tons of different geographical and atmospheric data. It's very cool in terms of what this thing has done and all the information that it has captured. All sorts of cameras, sensors, all the bells and whistles. So my first thought was, well, militarily, okay, you can use this as some sort of surveillance, almost like the Ghost Shark.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sticks out, pretty tough to miss a sailboat.
Yeah.
But still. But Lockheed looks at it and goes, you know what we could do?
Yeah.
We can put some Tomahawk missiles on that bad boy.
Yeah.
Now we're playing. Now we got something.
Yeah.
So that is the plan, to basically put a missile launching system on this autonomous sailboat. And we're talking about, Tomahawks and things like that nature. It is not like we're shooting little feelers over the fence. These
Yeah.
are some significant weapons that they're looking to add to this sail drone. It just looked to me like this is a cartoon from the 80s.
Yeah.
Like, what was it? Was it Mask? Was that the ones where like you'd have a car and then it like turned into a plane with all sorts of guns on it and everything?
Yeah.
So see how this $50 million investment turns out in taking a scientific vessel and turning it into a missile-laden, just badass boat will be very interesting. I still don't understand some of the technical advantages. I guess it's basically a floating launch pad.
Yeah. Missile defense.
We have those. So I don't know. Usually I like to make the whole thing that leads to the thing dynamic. I think this is the thing that all of these other things led to. So there it is. I don't even know where else to go. It just like we're putting missiles on a sailboat.
Well, it could be part of the Golden Dome. We just need the Golden Dome like from the sea also, defense capabilities. It is, there's no more of an American stereotype of just the like, yeah, that's cool, but could we put guns on it?
Yeah,
Like,
and it's only $50 million.
Yeah.
So Lockheed, sure, let the kids play with that.
Well, and it's like a lot of these capabilities, we have like smaller drones, buoys even, but it's like they saw it and they're just like, what if we made it bigger?
Yeah.
And we put.
It's great. You're getting all this data and stuff. That's fine. And it runs on solar, great.
Yeah, true. It's like as a research vessel, it's like $5 million. They put a gun on it. Oh, that's 50.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I was this one caught me too. Like I had to take a double take because I was just like, okay, let's make sure. Let's
Did I read this wrong?
Let's all make sure this is real. What day was it published? Andy, did you have a chance to check out the sail drone in all its glory, the giant American flag on it?
Not before we hit record on this thing, so I'm just getting caught up. This picture is wild.
Yeah.
I have some questions about how this works in practice, and maybe Lockheed Martin does too. But you got to spend money to make money.
They're gonna make it bigger.
Okay, that's one thing.
Got to make it bigger.
Yep.
Yeah.
Gonna put guns on it.
Yeah.
I wonder how maybe they're not intending to sneak up on anybody with this.
That's my first thought. Like it's got a big old sail on it. Like you can see it coming.
Well, that's why I see it like as more defense, where if you have these like a new acronym, USVs, unmanned surface vehicles spread out, and there was some sort of incoming attack that maybe we didn't have a good angle on.
To your point, you could set up almost like a buoy type defense line or something like that, I guess.
Man, let's get a ticket to the live fire demonstrations.
Yeah. This is your sci-fi movie here. This
100%.
This is what's on the seventh sign.
Yeah, the seventh side.
Excuse me.
Like
it's plans for this.
Yeah,
that's what's on the seventh side.
The autonomous sail drones are inside the seventh side.
We just wrote this thing.
Yeah, it makes it sound.
AI is going to pick this up and turn it into a screenplay.
Oh my goodness. No, it's sometimes you run stories and you're just like, this is where we are.
It's captivating. Got my attention. It's crazy.
No, it is. It's cool. I feel like that was a joke in many movies or shows where it's just like it's American. There's like an American that's always like, yeah, can we put a gun on it? All right, well, let's get into our final thoughts before we get out of here this week. Andy, thank you again for filling in this week. It's really always good to have you on the panel.
Always a pleasure.
What's your final thought this week?
I should have ran this by you before. Did Anna talk about trade show travel in her final thought last week?
We always travel, and then we always bring it up because,
I might be bringing up the same thing here. I had the distinct privilege of spending a day at the Equipment Automation Technology Show for food and beverage, EATS, cleverly shortened.
How was EATS?
Very interesting. Always good to go around and see what these companies are doing with automated technology and food production, and talk with people and see all the food.
Yeah.
What really drew my attention, there were a couple of cryptic banners hanging around McCormick Place.
Okay.
Turns out the other side of the hall was the annual showcase of the National Funeral Directors Association. So I had to try and beat rush hour out of there. Mm-hmm. So I did not get a chance to skulk around and see what kind of wares they were demonstrating. So if anyone knows, I am deeply curious. So you can email me.
Like eats and caskets.
Yeah, I was told, I haven't confirmed this, I was told it was basically food production technology and then a long-term care industry group down the hall, and then across the hall was the funeral directors.
Oh, yeah. That's,
So all 3 phases.
yeah. They had a closed loop. That is incredible. Like, I've been into some trade shows where you're just, actually there was, CES used to be co-located with quite an interesting trade show.
Sure was.
People were telling stories about some events in Vegas that run up against each other. So
but it's just like, hey, what's going on over there? Is that a hearse? My God. Like,
and I bring this up and people were asking me what was over there. I was like, I really should have stayed for 10 minutes and just kind of lurked over the side. You don't have a lanyard to go in there and hang out. But
I mean, it says press. You're typically all right.
I don't know if they turn me away, but
just
why
like,
chance it?
There's not a lot of foot traffic over there. What do you say? I just go in and take a few photos.
I'm just gonna hang out.
Yeah. No, that's hey, when you're in like a big place like McCormick, there are just a lot of things going on.
Yep.
Well, my final thought this week was that as I try to like slowly do less day to day, so that way I'm not beat the next day. I decided to do 2 things on Tuesday night. I decided to try and do a dodgeball game and then go to a concert all midweek on a Tuesday. It was a really great idea.
Wow.
But I will say, like, so first of all, dodgeball's back and it rules. And second of all, so I went to see the show. I've talked about the band before. Their name is Durry, Durry. I recommend them. They're a good time and it's a really good show. But it was the first concert that I went to alone that I can think of. And it was a very enjoyable experience because, like, all you had to worry about was yourself, finding a spot for one person among the crowd, getting a drink for yourself whenever you needed to, and you didn't need to worry about anything else. Well, they're not people that are smaller than you can see. Well, they're not people that are taller than you are in somebody else's way. None of that. I was just like, you know what? I'm going to, like, get closer to the stage. I'm happy here, and I don't have to worry about anything else other than enjoying the show and then getting the hell out of here when it's only in like, it's a relatively new band. So they played their entire catalog in about 75 minutes. And I'm like, this is the best concert going experience I've ever had. But that's an exaggeration. But, it's the best, most recent one I've had.
We won't tell other parties that it was the best concert experience you ever had.
I think she knows.
Oh, no. Yeah. It was the first thing I said when I came home. I'm like, you know what? Going alone ain't so bad. Mm-hmm. But, we're getting to, between the kids and work, you buy concert tickets like 6 to 9 months in advance, sometimes a full year. And I joked about how, like, especially for general admission shows, I'm going to start by buying one. And then as we get closer to the show, if we're still both going, I'll buy 2. And it's not just that I enjoyed going just by myself. Like sometimes you're with a group of friends. And it's, it's a lot going on. But I don't know if you've ever been to a show by yourself. But I don't know.
I don't think so, but I mean, I get it. It's like a movie theater. You're not there to talk to people. You're there it's too loud anyway.
Yeah, like, I'm not worried about like screaming the lyrics next to anybody because I'm like, I don't know this guy. Mm-hmm. Actually, the guy next to me was louder than me. And I was like, perfect. Look at this little honky-tonk ginger from Wisconsin. He's really excited. Jeff, have you ever done a concert alone?
No, but I feel like you might be doing a lot more by yourself after that diatribe.
What? I mean,
that sounded like a whole lot of David loving David.
No.
That's kind of what it sounded like to me.
No, it's just like any event where you're always looking out for someone else.
Hey, great.
That's not.
I'm just that.
First and foremost, I would like to say that I enjoy the company of all my friends and family, and everyone is always welcome to join me at these. I mean, there have been at least 2 different between this and a game during the NLCS where I put out all the feelers. Just like, hey, no, yeah, but no. And it's just like, that's fine. That's okay.
The fact that you went by yourself is not what leaves you open for criticism. It is how much you have celebrated.
I'm just trying to say, like, I'm like wrapping a little more context around that.
Right.
Like, just, it wasn't, maybe we'll selectively add it
so
this one.
My wife would almost certainly rather just be hanging out at home reading a book with the dog.
Yeah.
So that's I feel like we might kind of be in the same boat.
Yeah. No, it was. It was like instead of like, sometimes, and then sometimes when, your apprehensive producer Eric is just digging
I just
the
feel,
hole with the shovel.
I feel like you are just, you are. David's not getting shorter. He's just digging that hole.
Just,
Yeah.
There he goes.
Good luck,
Jeff,
buddy. Good
What's
luck.
your final thought this week?
So I just had a couple of different conversations, a couple of different experiences where, and it's in human nature to sort of gravitate towards and stick with some of the bad news that's going on. We always kind of kid around here, if it bleeds, it leads. I mean, that tends to be what gets the most response, all that kind of stuff. And the nature of these conversations, it just led me to remember that there's a lot of good stuff going on too. And if you need to proactively go after to find some of that good stuff, that's okay. I think we need to do that a little bit more. Just with some of again, there's a lot of stuff to get stuck on right now. And there's a lot, and times it's just hard to look past it. Just try to. And I said, be proactive. There's lots of good stuff to find out there too. I mean, I don't know, watch some puppy videos on YouTube or something, but there's there's still good things happening in the world as well. I guess that's my one to grow on final thought there.
I think it's really easy to get caught in your device and doom scroll yourself into a spiral.
Yeah.
But I think that it's important to get out in the community. Like, I mean, at that show, I was among 300 strangers, but it was like we're all just having a good time, and we're all, you're surrounded by good people, except the one that just wouldn't stop talking. And same thing with dodgeball. We're trying to ruin the other team's faces, but we're still all there, trying to just have a good time on a Tuesday night. So I think that's really good. Like, I think that we really lack that. Like, sometimes we fail to build the communities around us.
Well, the bad stuff is really sticky.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just need to shake it off and find some better stuff.
Yeah. Sometimes it's grim.
People in real life are better than they are on the internet, so it's important to
Good point.
find that out, relearn that from time to time.
That's true. It's true. All right. Well, before we get out of here, please make sure to not send any clips to my wife. You can also like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. If you want to email the podcast, you can reach any of us at Jeff, David, or Andy at IEN.com. With email the podcast in the subject line, you could also subscribe to our daily newsletter. Make sure you get it delivered to your inbox first, and you can subscribe to us on YouTube at IEN Magazine, so you can get a notification whenever we go live every Thursday. All right, for Jeff Ranke and Andy Zoll, I'm David Manti. This is the Today in Manufacturing podcast, and we will see you next week.